Collectathons, a game genre pioneered and perfected in the 90s. Well, maybe not perfected, but the Banjo series comes as close as you can get to perfect. With a huge speedrunning scene, it's amazing that this game series went over a quarter of a century without having a cheating scandal. That is, until now. Banjo Nuts and Bolts is the third console entry in the series, and while it's very different from the previous games, it does have an active leaderboard with dedicated runners. But recently, something very strange happened. The top runner deleted all of his non-world record runs and left the Discord without saying a word. And when another runner was looking at his remaining runs as a resource to create a speedrun guide from, he found something shocking. Across the runs, there were 2 instances of in-game currency totals not adding up to what was being collected, and the further he looked, the stranger it got. Objects in the game world were moving without explanation, and after digging deeper, he eventually found an issue with the audio. In today's video, we'll go over what led to these runs being investigated, the evidence that casts doubt on their legitimacy, what happened after I got involved, and the shocking revelation that put an end to any doubt about whether this run was cheated or not. The Banjo series is massively popular among millennials and Gen Z, as it's one of the most beloved franchises from the 90s, and this video's sponsored displate has metal posters with artwork from even more fantastic franchises. Canvas and paper posters suffer from being easily damaged, but displates are highly durable and easy to store, so you can change your wall decor easily without worrying about damaging them, which is great, because the finish on them is fantastic. On their website, you can find new original art or look for officially licensed images from brands such as Elden Ring, Netflix, and Star Wars, with the brand shop being a good place to start if you're unsure. With fast shipping, your displates will arrive in 4 to 5 days, and when it comes time to mount them, you don't need to get out the hammers and drills. Just apply the sticker leaf and magnet and you're in action, and if you don't like the placement, the sticker peels off easily. Use the link in the description to grab an exclusive discount for your new displates, or shop with my code Abyssoft to get up to 38% off. And with that, let's get back to the video. Banjo Nuts and Bolts takes a large departure from previous games in the series, where the first 2 games were largely classic 3D platformers where you learn new moves as you progress. Nuts and Bolts uses a vehicle building system where you have a large degree of control in constructing a vehicle to complete missions. This isn't the only difference, however. The previous 2 games had a hub world with linear progression, requiring you to collect items and complete levels to unlock further worlds. Nuts and Bolts is a bit different, however, as after a certain point, you have the freedom to complete missions in whatever order you want. Because of these 2 features, creating a world record level speedrun route requires a lot of knowledge, but world record holder Starsoul had created a speedrun route with some help from MadTaz and Psycho. However, not too long ago, he left the Discord and deleted this guide along with most of his runs that weren't world records. Looking at his records, he was miles ahead of the competition, being almost a full hour in front of second place in the hundo category. And the majority of his times were all set offline, as starting sometime in early 2019, Starsoul stopped streaming and would submit PBs to the leaderboard and post times he was setting in the Discord. At the time he deleted his old PBs, the community thought that while it was weird, it wasn't anything to be concerned over, as notable players on other games have done this before for various reasons. But without his guides, there was a large gap in resources for new players that wanted to run the game. So in September of 2025, a runner we'll call Torque decided to write a guide for the 131 category. 131 is where you collect every Jiggy in the game, and to help write a new guide, Torque decided to use the current world record by Starsoul as a template he could look at so he could take notes. It's common in speedrunning to base documentation upon the best available run at the time, so Torque got to work making a breakdown of Starsoul's world record, taking careful notes on his routing, movement, and currency route. And it was with the collectible golden notes that he noticed something peculiar. Starting at 22 minutes and 58 seconds, Starsoul begins collecting notes underwater, and while underwater, your note count is obscured by Banjo's air supply. But the sound effects and animations of collecting notes still plays, so with the note count hidden, Torque had to add them up by hand. After tallying them up, he saw that Starsoul had collected 2 bronze notes, 2 silver, and 1 gold, for a total of 22. And the last time we saw his note total, it was 354 after collecting a gold note. So with these 22, his total should have been 376. This is important because Starsoul is headed to the store to purchase an item that costs 25 notes. But when he opens the store, his note count shows as 375, and after buying the item, it goes down to 350. So a note has mysteriously gone missing. Only about 50 seconds passed from the time Starsoul gathered his last note to when he reaches the store, and he never did anything that would cause his note count to decrease, so Torque was very confused as to where the note disappeared to. Not wanting to jump to conclusions, he counted all the notes collected in this level, since the game keeps a tally and shows you what you collected and missed at the end. And after counting the notes collected in Showdown Town, he sees that Starsoul collected a total of 199. However, on the ending stats screen, it only shows him as having collected 198, a difference of 1. This seemed to confirm what he was already suspicious of, so he started looking at other things in the run more closely, and this arrangement of 6 notes we see early in the run was something that caught his eye. When first observed, the notes are arranged in rows of 3, but Starsoul moves them with the fence as he drives through it, moving the bottom 2 notes on the left up and slightly to the right. According to Torque, once a note is moved in the overworld, it will remain in that position unless it's moved again, collected by Banjo, or you save and quit out to the main menu, in which case they return to their original positions. In this case, the current arrangement of notes after being moved appears to have the bottom 2 in the left column move up and slightly right. And the next time we see them, about 40 minutes later, the notes are sitting in the same positions they were moved to, so everything appeared to be fine. However, the next time these notes are on screen, almost an hour later, the 2 notes from the left row that were sitting between the middle and top notes on the right now appear to be sitting between the middle and bottom notes on the left. This was very strange, since on the few visits Starsoul made back to the town in the last hour, he didn't drive through the fence or interact with the notes, so there wasn't any reason for them to have moved. This alarmed Torque, who was suspecting that the record may not be legitimate at this point, and other aspects of Starsoul's behavior had him feeling uneasy as well, namely the lack of streamed attempts and times that got posted to the Discord without any video proof. Torque suspected that the run may be spliced, and another piece of evidence worth considering is that when the note counter becomes off by 1, the next stop in the route is the shopkeeper, who has 4 different spawn locations, which is a big RNG spot for the run, as one location is preferred above the others. So, it would be a convenient spot to splice, and in Starsoul's run, he did get the best shopkeeper spawn. It's quite common for these pieces of evidence to point to a splice having taken place, namely currency or inventory issues and game objects moving in the world when they shouldn't. So, let's look at a few examples. In the Diablo 1 cheating scandal, the runner picks up a ring that goes to his inventory, but later in the run when he opens his inventory, the ring was mysteriously gone, despite it never being dropped or sold. And then a bit later, he opens his inventory and the vanishing ring has reappeared. This was explained because the run was spliced together from multiple segments of different runs, and the run he used where he opened his inventory didn't have the ring present. Another splice that was caught because of inventory discrepancies was in GoldenEye 007, where at the end of the frigate level, Bond will put away whatever gun he's holding when the stage is finished. The only time Bond puts away a different weapon is if he's not holding one when the level is completed, in which case the game shows him putting away a PP7, but in Henning Blom's frigate runs, he finishes the level with no weapon equipped. However, the cinematic that plays shows Bond putting away a Phantom, indicating that the run was spliced, with Henning later admitting that he faked the run. There are also examples of objects in the game world indicating that splicing was used, as was the case when Syndicate's COD Zombies runs were analyzed by Who Needs Jug, Krups, and Carl Jobst. There's an item called Quick Revive that allows you to revive yourself when playing solo player. However, you can only purchase it 3 times before the vending machine that sells it disappears. In Syndicate's run, he buys Quick Revive 3 times, but later on round 84, the vending machine is still visible in the game world, indicating that something was tampered with. The last thing I'll mention is that Jadiwi, a Pokemon cheater, never streamed his runs either, and would also post times to the Discord with no video to back them up, which was one of the factors that led to his eventual downfall. So now that we know there are discrepancies that point towards splicing having occurred, it's time to see if there were any splices by using audio analysis. And fortunately, Torque investigated the audio and found something he couldn't explain. In Starsoul's 131 run, at the end of the Bottles Logbox 6 mission, Torque heard something peculiar. Let's have a listen. Here it is slowed down in case you missed it. During the transition, there appeared to be a small section of silence. Looking at other runners' transitions on the same mission, this brief moment of silence isn't observed. Here's a clip from Bupw's Any% run at the same transition. Wanting a deeper look, Torque put both of these transitions into Audacity, and you can see the waveform goes completely silent in Starsoul's run for about 1/10 of a second. Looking at a different end of mission transition in Starsoul's run, the silence isn't observed. And Torque even found a transition in Starsoul's 131 run that lasted longer than normal. However, the waveform never went completely silent like the other transition. After Torque compiled all of this evidence, he passed it over to the mods, and while they were deciding on what to do, he got in touch with me about doing a potential video. And while I thought his evidence was compelling as it checked all the boxes of things that are present when a splice occurs, I wanted to get a second opinion on the audio, as Torque isn't an audio specialist. I got in touch with one of the audio experts I consulted on the Breath of Fire case, where a runner was accused of splicing a run, except when the experts looked at the run in question, no evidence of tampering was found. For this Banjo run, Balthazar was kind enough to once again provide his expertise, and once he looked at the audio, what he found was shocking. The first thing he asked for was the suspected splice, then some transitions that weren't suspected of being spliced from the same run so that he had a point of comparison. And after looking at the transition that had the moment of silence, he confirms that it looks odd in the spectrogram view. However, when he looked at the mains hum, there isn't any indication of tampering, as the hum is consistent and present throughout the entire transition. If you're unfamiliar with what the mains hum is, anytime you plug in an electrical device to the power grid, the frequency or hum of that power grid is picked up by that device. And in terms of audio analysis, if someone has spliced two clips together, there will be a break in the mains hum. In this case, the mains hum was completely intact, indicating that there wasn't any tampering. But there was one section of the video that Torque was certain contained a splice, and that's between 22 and 23 minutes, as that's when the note count changes by 1. Balthazar looked at this segment in his audio software, and the first thing he noticed was a strange hiccup in the mains hum. He explained to me that if someone were to crossfade two pieces of audio, that is, overlap them and fade one out and fade the other in, that there would be observable interference in the waveform. This is a common technique in audio mixing, but it can also be used to try and hide a splice, so you might be thinking, aha, here's the smoking gun. But not so fast, because he had another explanation for this. In the game world, Banjo is underwater, which means the sound designers likely used a low-pass filter to roll off the higher frequencies of the game audio, which is the technical way to say that while underwater, the game muffles the soundtrack. Have a listen here. He also notes that the sample rate is high, which makes it plausible for more low-frequency sounds to hit the subwoofer. And after listening to the audio track, he says that the kick drum may be the source of the disruption in the mains hum, as it's a relatively low-frequency instrument, and he notices similar disruptions earlier in this segment. Maybe you're not convinced by this, however, and Balthazar does mention that this location would be a good spot to try and hide a splice for the reasons we just covered. Well, by using the harmonics of the mains hum, we can add more weight to this not being spliced. A harmonic is a bit technical to explain, but it's essentially a higher frequency version of the bass frequency at a specific interval. And when looking at the harmonics, we don't see the same disruption observed at the bass frequency, suggesting that the kick drum is what's causing this, as with a splice, the entirety of the waveform would be affected. But I had one remaining question. What would happen to the audio if someone spliced a video, then played it back over the console they were running on? As we know, Starsoul recorded his runs directly from his console. Balthazar's reply was that if someone were to do this, they would have to splice a run together, remove the mains hum from the original recording, then play the run back from the console, where the new recording would pick up the mains hum from the console, creating spliced footage that appears to be consistent from a mains hum perspective. However, Balthazar also said that while this is possible, it's a lot of extra work and technical knowledge just to create a fake speedrun. Not to mention, it would be very difficult to prove if this method was being used, so for the time being, from an audio perspective, everything about this run checked out. After I relayed this information to Torque, we were still scratching our heads as to what was going on with the note total being off and the note's moving position in the game world. And it's worth mentioning that the note total discrepancy wasn't just observed in the 131 run, it was also observed in Starsoul's Any% run in the exact same location where Banjo was underwater. I suggested that Torque try and recreate what Starsoul was doing in the run to see if the note discrepancy and items moving could be explained. And he came up with a theory as to what was possibly happening when he tried to explain this from Starsoul's point of view. He says, "The last note I collect underwater, a bronze note worth 1, doesn't add towards my stats. This is because I collected it on the exact frame Banjo hops out of his vehicle, which glitches out the game. The note disappears, but it doesn't get added to my stats total. The same thing happens in both runs." I told him that this should be tested for and asked if there were task tools for the game, to which he said there weren't, but that he had tried to recreate the glitch he just theorized and wasn't able to make it happen. I suggested he keep trying to recreate the anomalies, and a day later, he sent me this video. In this clip, he fully proves the theory he came up with, that what was happening in Starsoul's run was actually a previously unknown glitch, where if you exit a vehicle the exact frame you collect a note, the animation and sound effect of the note being collected play, but it's never added to your note total. The timing for this glitch to occur couldn't have been worse. Since it happened while underwater, Banjo's note total is obscured, making it look like a blatant splice. And this is despite the fact that it happened in 2 different world record runs. Had the glitch happened while not underwater, Torque would have seen Starsoul collect a note, but the note wouldn't have been added to his total, and the glitch would have been caught immediately. As it stands, there's no audio evidence of splicing, and the note count issue was caused by an unknown glitch. This just goes to show that conclusions shouldn't be rushed and that due process is very important when looking into potential cheating situations. And it's worth noting that no public accusation of cheating was made at any point. The process was allowed to play out in full. However, had Torque never reached out to me, the audio likely never would have been analyzed by a professional, and the outcome would have been very different. But there's still one major question. What about the notes that moved position? To date, these haven't been explained, and they weren't observed moving in other high-level runs. But since the audio checked out and the note discrepancy was explained, this issue alone wasn't enough for the mods to take action over. Maybe it's the camera angle making them appear to have moved, or maybe some other unknown glitch is the culprit. I've looked at these from every angle I can find, and I'll admit that sometimes it looks like they haven't moved at all. However, moving ahead a few frames makes them appear like they've definitely moved. Let me know what you think down below, and maybe we can solve this mystery. This was quite the interesting case to investigate, as what appeared to be solid evidence turned out to be explained by a glitch with the worst timing in history. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next exciting episode of Abyssoft.